For this project, you will need one collection from Country Craft Creations of By the Seaside paper. This is exclusive beach theme sheets with cut aparts and tags. So I will end up using nearly all of the paper in this collection for this album, including the pre-cut die cut tags that you see here on the side. So I do end up using all of these in the project. You will also need medium weight chipboard for your cover that you're going to cut two pieces 6.5 by 6.5 inches. So go ahead and take two full sheets of a 12 by 12 chipboard, the medium weight, and cut those down to 6.5 by 6.5. You only need two. We don't need to cut a spine because we're going to make a different type of spine on this album. For your cover wrap, you go ahead and cut your pattern paper. You need two that are 8.5 by 8.5, and I chose this design because of the muted two-tone colors. So two that are 8.5 by 8.5 to wrap the chipboard pieces. Then for our inside cover for our pattern, I use the other side of this same design sheet. I need two that are 6 by 6, so go ahead and cut those. And you're also going to need, to make this soft spine, this curved spine, you're going to need the material called Craft Tex. And it is a paper fabric that's very pliable, that's going to make it really strong there on the back. And you need to cut one piece that's 6 3/4 by 6 1/4. Now this is not available from Country Craft Creations. I did have this in my stash, and then also in my stash I had some burlap. You can also use canvas fabric, and you need a piece that's also 6.5, that is 6.5 by 6. And what we're going to do is we're going to glue the Craft Tex to the back of this fabric. So go ahead and cut these pieces out to get ready to make the cover. Now I've grabbed a piece of plastic because I am going to use glue on this. The burlap is porous, so if some of it comes out. And I'm just checking the length and the height of my Craft Tex. So you want the 6.5 to be your height. And I am using Fabrifix, which is like Fabri-Tac, I think is the other name. You could use art glitter glue, but I am going to use Fabri-Tac on mine. Go ahead and put a good amount of the fabric glue on the back side of your Craft Tex. And this glue is really thick, so I really have to squeeze really hard to get it out, but I'm going to put a good amount on the entire back of the Craft Tex piece so that this burlap fabric will stick down. So I'm just going to go ahead and put that down, and then I'll place the fabric down on top of it. Now while the glue was drying, I went ahead on the edges of the burlap that's extending over the Fabri-Tac. I did pull out strings to ravel to give that that more rustic look, ravel look. I want the strings kind of sticking out on all the sides of the piece, and then I'm just patting it down to make sure that all the glue is smoothed out, and on the back kind of burnishing it with my hands to make sure everything sticks down well. And so when it curves, you have a backing on your burlap or canvas that will make a good spine for your album. Now we're ready to get our front and back covers ready. So you have your two chipboard pieces that are 6.5 by 6.5, your two pattern papers that are 8.5 by 8.5, and your two inside papers that are 6 by 6. So I'm going to set these aside with the spine here, and we're first going to wrap the chipboard pieces. So take one of your pattern papers, and I'm going to grab my scoreboard to help keep everything in place, and my 1-inch spacers. Now these spacers are available at Country Craft Creations. If you don't have these, you can cut some out of chipboard. They need to be 1 inches wide by 12 inches long. Um, I really like these in the acrylic plastic because they're bright colors and I can always find them easily. So I'm going to take one piece of the chipboard and my art glitter glue. I'm just going to take a minute to get that going. Good. If I haven't used it for a bit, it clogs on the end and then I have to get it started again, but it's real easy using this little tip that I have. And then I just spread the glue out on one side of the chipboard. And then place it on the back side of your patterned paper with the edges flush up against the spacers. So this leaves a 1-inch margin all the way around. And then I burnish it on the other side with my hands to make sure the glue is spread out, and then you can take your bone folder and press it out more and burnish it really good. So set that aside to dry and then go ahead and do the exact same thing here on your other piece. Of course, don't forget to use the spacers to get that 1-inch border all the way around. So I'm getting the glue on. Then I'll put the spacers back in place, and then I will attach this down on the back side of the patterned paper. And be sure to go ahead and burnish it so that it's the glue is spread out smoothly underneath or on your chipboard. Okay, so you can go ahead and put your spacers away and your scoreboard, and we're ready to actually miter the corners and wrap the chipboard. So I am going to use a bookbinding tool, mitering tool, and you just place it on the corners. You can also fold your pattern paper and cut out the 4 corners. If you use this tool, it leaves about 1/8 of an inch on each corner from the tip. You can also use a ruler and mark that and cut it with your scissors. So I'm going to go ahead and cut all 4 corners on both pieces. Go ahead and take your bone folder and fold all the edges of your pattern paper over the card's chipboard to give a nice smooth line where it's going to be attached down. So I'm just folding and burnishing all the sides. So do that on both pieces. And since these are the same size, it's a square, it doesn't matter which ones you start with. So go ahead and take your glue and run a line up against the chipboard onto the cardstock or the pattern paper. And I do want to caution you that if you're not using the Country Craft Creations paper, you want to make sure that if you're using pattern paper that it's a very good quality. This is a linen type Bristol, cotton Bristol paper. It doesn't crack when you're folding it over. Not all pattern papers will be usable for wrapping album covers. You would need to use cardstock instead. But I love wrapping with the Country Craft Creations exclusive pattern papers. It turns out really nice. So go ahead and burnish those and burnish the edges to get a nice crisp edge on your cover. After you've wrapped 2 opposite sides, then take your bone folder and tuck your extended pieces in so that this will fold in nicely. If you don't, you're going to have little pieces of paper sticking out in your corners that you'll have to cut off, and that doesn't look so great. So you want to make sure that you tuck those in really good with your bone folder and then wrap the other 2 sides. And when you do that, you will have a really nice corner if you're doing this corner mitering method. So go ahead and always make sure you burnish the edges because that just makes it look more finished, and it gets that glue into the paper and gets a smooth edge there. So I'm just going to go ahead and finish wrapping this one, and then the second one will be done the exact same way. Once I've wrapped the pieces, I've looking at the patterns and deciding what I want to be the front and the back and what I want the direction to be, which would be the top. And then I've turned these over, and I'm going to take the two 6x6 pieces of patterned paper that I've already pre-cut, and I'm going to glue these on to the covers now before we do anything else. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my ink, and I'm going to use this Distress Oxide color. This is a fossilized amber. I know it's a little odd, different using the yellow, but I really liked how it looked with the colors of this patterned paper, especially when you bring it over the edges some. Now, I did not add ink into the supply list at the front because that's optional. You may or may not want to ink your papers, and that's up to you. I am going to be doing inking on mine. So go ahead and ink all the edges on your papers that go on the inside of your covers. And then take your glue and apply glue around the edges and then some in the center, and go ahead and cover both the front and back album covers. Go ahead and attach these inside papers down, and I'm just centering it so it has an equal amount on all four sides. And of course, I'm using a paper towel, a Viva paper towel, to wipe up any excess glue and burnish it down with my hands to make sure that glue spreads out, and then finish burnishing with my bone folder. So that's the back side, and now I'm going to put this down on the front cover. And I love these images here with the ladies on the beach under their umbrella. This is very vintage, very beachy. I love the sand color and the teal color mixed in with this. It's a very, very pretty paper. So I think you'll be happy with this if you're making a beach themed album. And what a great way to finish up the summer by doing a beach album. I know that school is starting back up for everyone. We will actually be going on our coastline vacation in a few weeks, so I'm happy to get this album created. So I'm just double checking, making sure that I like the direction of the papers, though I've already glued it down, so it's a little bit too late to change that. And then you're going to take your spine piece, and you're going to be attaching it to your covers. So I'm just double checking, deciding which one I want the front and the back to be. And I kind of like this one with the blue on the bottom. So I'm going to take my ruler, and I'm going to line up this cover on the grid, and I'm deciding how far over I want it onto the cover on the front and the back. So I'm going to use the fabric glue again, and I'm going to put a line of glue about, got to get this glue started. Let me check and see how far in. I think about 1.5 inches will work for that. So put your line of glue, yeah, about 1.5 inches over, and that's what's going to attach onto the cover. So it's going to overlap onto the cover about 1.5 inches, and I'm just lining it up, and then I'm going to press down and let that attach and flip it over and burnish it. Now be real careful, don't put your other side on upside down. Don't make that mistake. So go ahead and put glue on the other side about the same distance. So if you, this is a 6-inch, about a 6-inch piece, inch and a half on each side, that's going to give you still a 3-inch spine there in the center that's going to be curved. Now remember this is a soft curved spine. There will not be any pages or hinges actually attached to the spine section, and you'll see what I mean about that as we get into creating our hinge piece. Now I will say this is a little different. This is the first time I've really done this. My pages, when the book's laying flat, my pages are all even with the hinge coming out, but when the book is closed they do look uneven, but I'm okay with it because of the nature of the book, with it being rustic and beachy. I'm okay with that. So if that's an issue for you, you want it perfectly straight on the ends of your pages, they're all matched, then I would suggest that you do a different type of hinge for your album, if you don't want to do that. But this is something different that I wanted to try with the soft spine here on the outside. So you see how it curves, and I love how it looks. So I am happy with it the way that it looks, and even though it did turn out a little bit different with the pages. So that's the cover of our book. So next we should be working on our hinges. I did forget, because you can see down into that hinge when you look uh, down from the top, that we do need to go ahead and cover the inside with some of the burlap. So I cut a piece of your material, your fabric, cut it about 2 3/4. That's the width that it ended up being when I was measuring earlier, the 2 3/4 section by 6 1/2. So I'm adding the fabric glue, and then I'll be just attaching this piece of the burlap down into that, so that when the pages are on and you look down from the top of your album, you will see the finished inside here as well. So go ahead and do that. To make the hinge, you need one piece of cardstock that's cut 11 inches by 6. We're going to score the 11-inch side. Our first score will be at 1 1/4. And then we're going to skip over and score at 9 3/4. Then go back over to your 1 1/4, and from that point skip over a 1/2 inch and score every 1/2 inch up to the 9 3/4 spot. So you see I'm just going along and scoring every 1/2 inch, starting at the 1 1/4 inch score line, skip 1/2 inch, then 1/2 inch and a 1/2 inch, all the way up to your 9 3/4 inches to get your hinge piece scored properly. Okay, so we have it all scored. You can see the lines there, and you have your 1 1/4 on each end. Now we're going to move the scoreboard, and we're going to turn this over so that you can feel the bumpy side, and take a pen or pencil. Now we're not going to put any glue in that 1 1/4, but I'm putting an X in a 1/2 inch, 1/2 inch, skipping a 1/2 inch, X X, skip 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 a 1/2 inch, X X, which will leave you at the final score line. So that gives us 6 sections that will become hinges. Now you're going to want to fold your score lines. The first one at the 1 1/4 inch, you fold back, and the score line between the two X's you fold so that the X's touch each other, so you fold towards the X's. So I'm just going through and folding each one to make it easier when I start gluing this together. So what you're going to do is you're going to glue the two half-inch spaces that have the X's together. So an X will glue to an X. So I'm putting glue on this first X, the half-inch space with an X in it. So just glue on that half-inch. And the second X, you're going to put the X down onto the X and you glue that together. That makes your hinge. And then I fold this back and burnish. Now, you may fold and burnish a different way, and that's fine, but the goal is to glue those two X's together to get that hinge. So you see here I'm putting glue on that first X, the whole length of that half-inch section, and I'm going to make that X attach down to the next X. And you're going to continue doing this. So I'm go ahead and speed up the video, but this is how you assemble or bring these hinges together. You'll end up with 6 hinges. So now I'm just going to go flip it back over and make each hinge stand up. So you're going to have a 1.25" flap, and then you have 6 hinges that will stand up. Each will have a ½ inch between them, and then you have your 1.25" on each end. So you see the two 1.25s on each side, the flaps, and then the 6 hinges. And I'm just folding them left and right to make sure that they turn good. So you just go ahead and burnish those like that. Okay, so this is going to go here inside, and the flaps is what's going to attach into the cover. The hinges are not going to attach to the spine. As I said earlier, if you do not want this type of hinge, you would need to adapt this and change it to a standard or regular hinge. So now I'm putting glue on the 1.25" section on both sides. Put a good amount of glue. This is what's going to hold the hinge into your book. Use glue. Glue would attach or hold better than score tape. Now you will see that I had pulled up some on my inside covers because I had cut my hinge initially wrong and I edited that part out. But this is the correct size here that I showed you how to assemble. And so you go ahead and glue that down. So you don't see where I had to pull up my old first hinge, which I made the wrong size. So it wasn't quite fitting in there right. Now you see here how that when you close the book, those hinges kind of look funny. And that's what makes the pages look an irregular length on the outer side. And again, I stress that if you don't think you would like this hinge, go with your standard hidden hinge on this and spine, but you can't use this soft spine and do that. So this is the first time I've done that. I may have to tweak this with some other albums and play with this and see if there's a different way or a different size maybe that I need to adjust to make it not do that. But as I said, this is a more rustic, beachy type book, and I was okay with it in the end with the end result. So I'm going to go ahead and leave it this way and work on the pages to get them ready to go into the book. So I just wanted to stress that if you think you might not like this type of hinge, to go ahead and do a standard one and a flat spine with your lay flat album instead of this spine that's wrapping around like this. Okay, so now we're going to want to put paper on our spine sections, not the hinges, but the spaces between. So I have cut from the wood looking paper the height of the spine section and two that are 1.5 inches wide, and then the others are all cut at just under 1/2 inch to fit in between those sections. So you will want, let's count, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of those that go between right here. Okay, so just take your glue and glue those in, and the heights of those are to fit in there, going to be the height of the pages, 6 inches. So two that are 6 by 1.5. I'm sorry, 6 by 1.25, I believe. I'm just double checking my actual album here. Yeah, 1.25. Two that are 6 tall by 1.25 wide, and five that are just under 1/2 inch by 6 inches tall. So you may have to trim some down to fit. So go ahead and glue all these in. To finish that off, these go in the spaces, not on the hinges. And this will make it look finished this way. And I love this worn wood look, weathered wood beach look that goes in between these pages here. Okay, so now I've gotten these all glued in. I'm ready now for us to start working on our pages. So you're going to make 6 base pages out of a 12 by 12 cardstock. So I've already made 5. So you don't cut the cardstock, you leave them all at 12 by 12, and on one 12-inch side we're going to score 6 inches. Then we're going to turn it and score on another 12-inch side at 6 inches, which will make intersect the others. So you've got now have four 6 by 6 squares on your each of your 6 12 by 12 pieces of paper for your base pages. Like I said, I've already made 5. They're all going to be made the same. Now line up on your grid your 6-inch line and take your ruler, and what you're going to do is make sure they're lined up on the top and the bottom. You're going to take a craft knife and you're going to cut from that center right down that line. So you see here we have it looking like this. So you've only got one cut. Now fold in half, burnish, take the one you cut, fold it back and burnish, fold the other one under and burnish, and you have your base pages. And then when you stand it up, it should look like this. This is the top. You've got your, let me make sure. Yeah, I think your top is your fold. Yes, your top is your fold with your 2 pages or wings going back. So you have a V coming down like this. So you want to make sure that all of them are stacked up like that. You want, and I will go over that again with you to make sure we got that right. But that's our 6 base pages. Next, we're going to make our pockets. So from your cardstock, you will need to cut 6 that are 7 inches by 5 inches. On your 7-inch side, we're going to score at 1/2 inch and 6.5. 1/2 inch and 6.5. Then you will turn to the 5-inch side and you're going to score at 2.5. Make sure you're scoring at 2.5 on all 6 pockets. So that's what you should have like that. So I'm going to go ahead right quick and speed this up and do all the other 5. Take your 6 pockets and your scissors, and we're going to cut, miter cut, make a V cut right there in the center at that 2.5 inch score line up to the 1/2 inch. So it should be a V like that, like an angle on each side of the score line, cutting out the actual score line, but you only go in to the 1/2 inch. Then fold in half and burnish. Fold your 1/2 inch tabs into the inside and burnish. Do that on all 4 flaps. And that will make a pocket, and you'll see how this goes onto our pages in just a bit. So go ahead and do all the other 5 the same way. Okay, so now we're ready to put these pockets into the pages, and hopefully I can explain this so that it makes it really easy for you. So take a page set, one base page, so that your fold is at the top and you see this TP look here, and you've got your 2 flaps on the side, okay? Now we're going to take our pocket, one pocket, and you're going to put glue on the inside on these flaps. Just the 1/2 inch flaps that are on the inside. And then take this V shape here, and on the bottom of it, the fold of your pocket goes right up against that. And then you're going to take those 1/2 inch, make sure they go in, and go ahead and make sure it's more to the outer edge than towards the fold of the page, and then burnish each 1/2 inch. What this does is it seals up the bottom of the base page and creates the pockets on each side of the center of your base page. So there we have the pocket, then we bring those flaps around, and that is our base page. I'm just straightening it, make sure and burnish that this fold still folds. If it's too far into your fold, it's not going to work right. So I am pulling this up a little bit and moving it just a tiny bit um, to make sure it's straight and right just to the edge of that fold. So go ahead and if you adjust it, burnish it in, and now it should work better. I think this is a really neat way to make a base page, and go ahead and do that on all 5 of them, the exact same thing. So just repeat this section, and you'll see now once it's sealed up with the pocket, we have this centerpiece from both sides. That's going to be what goes on our hinge. So those are our pages. Okay, now we're ready to add in some flaps. So I cut 6 inch by 6 inch flaps. I have wrote on my sticky note here 6, but I ended up doing 12 because the book could handle it. And the 4.5 by 6 inch size, I ended up cutting, I believe, yes, 6 of those. So disregard the notes there, but you do need just 6 of the page inserts that are 5.5 by 6. Go ahead and cut those and set those aside. They don't need score. So again, we're going to make 12 flaps that are 6 inches by 6 inches, and we're going to score one 6 inch side on all of them at a 1/2 inch. So I'm going to go ahead and do that real quick. Okay, so I have all 12 scored, and you'll see here I'm changing the number on my sticky note. We're going to have 12 6 by 6, and I scored them all on 1/6" side at a 1/2 inch. So we have those flaps ready. So now let's take the smaller ones, and these are your 4.5 by 6, and I'm changing that right now on my sticky note. We're going to cut 6 of those, so you should have 6, and we're going to score these all on the 4.5" side at a 1/2 inch. So go ahead and do all of those on your 4.5" side, score at a 1/2 inch. Now you just need to take all these flaps and fold. Well, before we do that, I'm sorry. Take your scissors and do a slight miter cut on the end of each 1/2 inch, just from the 1/2 inch fold line out into the flap, and then fold and burnish each one. So I'm going to go ahead and do that on all the small flaps and the big flaps. Do them all the same way. So miter cut your ends of your 1/2 inch just like this, and then fold and burnish. So I'm going to go ahead and speed this up and get all those done. Okay, so once you have all the flaps ready, and you'll notice that I did take my 1/2 inch corner rounder and punch the corners of all the flaps and also the page inserts on just the bottom edge of the inserts. Now, you can put your flaps on any way that you want to, and with the 12 large flaps, you have enough to put 2 on each page set. With the smaller, shorter flaps, you have enough to put 1 on each page set, and you can combine these together. You can put them on the side, on the top, or on the bottom, however you want to do it. And I'm going to show you putting um, the flaps on the base page set 1, and then you have the freedom to go ahead and put your flaps on. You could do them all like I am and then do your pattern paper decorating, or you can add your flaps as you're adding your pattern paper so that you can decide what papers you want to use. So here I have the base page, and you want to make sure that your pockets are on the bottom of your page. So look at that, and then take your glue, and you're going to put glue just on that 1/2 inch flap, and that's what's going to attach down into your page. So go ahead and pick your flaps. So I'm going to put a large one on first, and I've got to get my glue going. I love this glue tip because for me it's easier to get it going again once it clogs, but everything clogs with glue and you're going to have to work with it. So this one I just work with it, get it going again, and then I use the end of this silicone tip to spread my glue out. So I like it for myself personally really well. You know, whatever works for you is what you should do. You could even use score tape to put your flaps on if you want to. So I'm just looking at it to make sure I have the I want this on the top, so make sure my pockets are at the bottom of my page. I'm turning this slightly so I can line it up because I have a tendency to get things on a little crooked sometimes, and I'll have to lift it up. That's why I use glue, so that I can rearrange it pretty quick. So once you have it on, just burnish it. Make sure it's on right on the edge. So this one's on the front side. And I'm burnishing on the inside to make sure it stays down. So there, and then I open it up. So there's your pocket on the right. I'm going to turn to the next page, and I think I'm going to put it right here on the inside of the back section. And I'm going to put a small flap on the top. Same way, they all go on the same way. You put your glue on the back side of your 1/2 inch attachment flap and then line it up onto your page. Now I'm going to find here, you can dry fit and trim these down if they're a little bit too wide for your page, because they are cut the same size, 6-inch page, 6-inch flaps. So sometimes you're going to have some that extend over a little bit. When that happens, I just take my scissors, and you'll see me doing that, take my scissors and trim that off and repunch my corners. Right now I'm readjusting, and I do that quite often if I don't get it on straight or exactly where I want it to, and that's why I do use the glue, as I said, so that I can adjust and get my flaps and things on as straight as possible. Not always perfect, but I try. I think this one probably needs a little bit more glue since I moved it, so I'm going to just pull it up and add a little more glue. Just don't worry about it. Go ahead and add some more in and then burnish that down and just make sure it's on straight. And so give it a good burnish and get that in. And then here where you see if it might be extending a little bit, right there, just a tiny, tiny bit, I'm going to take my scissors and just trim that off. And if it causes my rounded corner to be off, then I will re-round that as well. So right there on the corner, I think that it needs repunched because I did trim some of that away. And if you need to, just make it a little bit more adjustment. Just I see a little bit more that needs to come off. So I've got that off, and then I just make sure it's burnished on good. So that's a short flap on the top. And then I think I'm going to go ahead and put a big one on the bottom. Like I said, you can use one short one. You have enough to use one short one on each page set and 2 of the bigger ones on each page set. So I'm just going to put the glue on and attach this one to the bottom. And again, I can see already that it's going to extend a little bit over there on the side. And you want to make sure that you're lining it up on the inside where the fold is so that it folds up good. So I'm checking that. And then I'm going to trim off anything that extends to the outer edge. So just trim that off if you need to. I can see that right there that it's going to need a little bit of trimming. And I like to use the bigger straight scissors for trimming like that. I can cut straighter. Just trim that off and then repunch that one corner. And again, I am using the 1/2 inch corner punch. Okay, so there we have the flaps on the base page 1. I fold this up, and I'm just going to show you real quick where your page insert goes. Of course, I don't insert those until I've added the page into the book. So, but if you take one, and I'm going to insert the straight edge in. I'm sorry, I'm going to insert the curve, the 2 rounded corners in, because it's easier for the rounded to go in. And I'm going to leave the outer edge on the outside. Now it will stick out just a little bit, and I wanted it that way because I'm going to come along later when I'm decorating and add some braided little rope to make it look like more beach or pier item looking like that. But I'm not going to leave that in right now, so I'm just wanted to show you where it goes. So that is your base page, the first one. Okay, so now I've got all my pages with the flaps on, and I'm going to take a pencil, and on the front of each one I have wrote down page set 1, page set 2, page set 3, especially so that it keeps me, I know by reading that is the direction of the page. I don't get my pockets upside down or anything. So here's the page set one that I already showed you, where I did flap on the top on the front, a small flap on the top on the inside, and a big flap here on the bottom. So that's page set one. The back's plain. Page set two, I decided I did not want anything across from each other on this one, so page set two, the front is plain. I open it up, and this is where I put a big flap on the left and a short one on the right. And then we have the pocket on the inside, and on this one I put the big flap on the back at the top. Page set three, again, nothing on the front, but a big flap at the top on the inside. And then we have the pocket. And then I have a short flap with a pocket. And this is where I'm going to put a tie string. So you want to pay attention to that. And then here I put the big flap on the inside. So you'll notice that each page set is a little bit different. So page set four, the big flap is to the right, and then you open it up, you have a small flap with a pocket, and then I have the pocket with no flap, and then I put the big flap on the back page on the left side. So that's page set four. Page set five, I've left that with no flap on the front. Open it up, I put the big flap to the left on the inside, then we have a pocket, and then I put a small flap. I think this is similar, well, maybe to page set one, on the top, and a big one on the bottom. And then the last page set six, I put the small flap on the left on the front, the big one on the right. You open it up, got your pocket, nothing on the inside there, got your pocket here on this side, and then I put the flap on the outside at the top on the back. So that's all the flaps for the pages. Okay, so now we're ready to decide on our closures. You can use magnets for your closures on your flaps. Some of your flaps you may not want any closures. I'm going to use magnets, and also I'm going to incorporate some ties where the pockets have the flaps. So here I am using this small magnet disc that you can order from Country Craft Creations, and I've got to open this package, so it's a little fiddly to open them. I know it's a security thing. We don't want children getting a hold of the magnets and swallowing them or something. So they're packaged really well. I just take scissors and I cut the plastic packaging off and then rip the back off, and then can get into it a little easier that way. I don't have any small children, so I don't have to worry about that. And I keep my door closed to my craft room unless I'm in here, so that the cats can't come in. I don't think they would eat magnets, but you never know, right? So anyway, take a set of magnets, that would be a plus and a minus. And here on page set one, you would open up your big flap, and I'm going to peel the backing off and attach the magnet about in the center. I just eyeball it at about 3/4 of an inch down from the top. And then I peel that backing off of the one that's attached. A plus and a minus are attached together. Then the adhesive is exposed, and I press it down and then gently lift up, and my magnets are in place. And then to secure them, because I'm not adding the pattern paper immediately, I do take some Scotch tape, clear wrapping tape or packing tape, and I just seal that in. And I do think that helps keep the magnets from showing as much through the pattern paper maybe, and I just typically always do that. So now you're going to go through and you're going to do that on all your page sets. The ones that you want magnets, you will do them all the same. I'm looking right now like this one here with the pocket. Now what I'm going to do is, I'm not ready to put my closure on. I'm writing down add tie. So I'm going to attach it here on this flap. But then I need one coming from the other side, so the back side I'm going to write attach or add tie. This way when I go to put my pattern paper, and I drew an arrow to show me where it's going to go, I'll know that I'll put those on, then I'll add my pattern paper, and then I will have my ties on, and so I don't forget. So I know I have two of these that I need to do. I have two pockets that have the short flap. and all the rest will be magnets. Once we have all the flaps done and the magnets and added to our album pages, then we're ready to get our pattern papers ready. So I've already done mine. I pre-cut all of mine. You choose the margin that you want on yours. Mine is just a very narrow margin. I like just barely a 16th of an inch. So I usually trim my pattern papers an eighth of an inch smaller on the width and the height. That gives me a 16th of an inch border all the way around. If you want a wider border, you can do that. So measure yours and cut them out the way you want them. Now I'm going to go ahead and ink all of mine. Like I said before, I didn't put ink on the supply list because that's a personal choice. You may or may not want ink, but I am using the Ranger Distress Oxide in the fossilized amber, which is a gold color, because I like how it kind of adds that, I don't know, some of the colors of the paper. It just adds a little vintage look on the edges. I like how it blends in with the blues and the greens. And I really, that's the color that I liked on mine. And you can use whatever color you choose if you're using this paper collection. So I don't think you can go wrong. You could use your browns, your blacks, or even a blue color if you wanted to. So that's what I'm doing right now. I'm going through, I have cut all my papers and laid them out in the order with my pages, and I'm just going to ink them all. And I'm not going to show you me inking all of these pages. I'm going to go ahead and skip forward, and I'm going to show you gluing down the pattern papers into the last page set. So I did ink all my papers and I've glued everything in on page sets, base pages 1 through 5, and now I am just adding the patterned paper onto my page set 6. I didn't think that you needed to see me gluing all these pages, but for this one I am making this match up with the back of page set 5. And so I have this other piece of the paper that says she sells seashells at the seashore, and I cut it so that part of it goes on page set 6. And now I'm just covering the back sides of all my flaps. You see the magnets there. I'm putting some glue down to secure that, and I'm just going to add this on, and you can see I have a narrow margin on my papers or on my pages and flaps, and then I burnish it down really well around the magnet and around and wipe off any excess glue. So I have all my papers in order. Now this side here, I wanted to continue that scene of the uh, words she sells, but of course there's not enough to go. You don't want anything underneath that's covered with a flap. So I cut this down to just show this little part where it says the with the birds, and then I use some plaid for the part that goes over the magnets, so that when this closes you see the whole from page set 5 to page set 6. You see the whole continuous image of that pattern paper, and then under the flap we have the plaid. So I'm just going to go ahead and continue adding my glue and adding in my pattern papers here on this last page set to give you an idea of what I've done. All my pages and flaps and pockets have been covered with pattern paper, and now I'm ready to show you how to put these pages into your album cover. Take your album cover and you've got your hinge already in with your hinges in your spine section, and it's loose underneath. It's only attached on the front and back cover, and I'm going to work from the back forward. And I have already dry fit my pages, so I know that they fit. You don't need to trim anything if everything was cut correctly. If yours don't go on easily when you dry fit it, you may have to trim just at a slight angle from the base of your hinge in towards the center to get them to fit. But they should go on easily like mine do. You kind of have to wiggle it around a little bit. So you take your first page set and open up where that space is in between, between the two pockets, and make sure you're not putting anything on upside down. Make sure your pages are going the right direction and just fit that over it. Now you don't have to push it all the way down. It kind of it just falls into place there. I kind of hold it up and burnish that glue. I have glue on both sides of the hinge, and so I'm going to press on the front and wipe off any glue that may come out, and press really well on the back and let this set and dry good. So I have the first page on, which is the very last one. That's page set 6. And I'm going to grab my paperweight so it kind of just holds it up so it's not falling down and pulling off that hinge. I want it to stay on there while I glue the others on. So again, I'm putting glue, art glitter glue, on the front and back of the next hinge. And I'm not putting it way down at the base. I'm putting it more towards from the middle to the top. So take your next page set, and make sure it's matching up. Open it up there in the center where you've got your space in the middle and fit it down over the hinge. And again, like I said, I kind of hold it up and burnish with my fingers really well on both sides. I want to get that glue in there. I want these pages to stay in. So keep working on these, adding your pages in from the back forward, and make sure you put glue on both the front and the back hinge of each one. Now I'm finishing up with the first page, page set 1, getting it on the hinge and burnishing it really well on both sides. So I did let it dry for a bit, and then I'm ready to start putting my inserts into the pages. I have added my inserts into each page. There's one for each, and then I also added this trim, and I used two different ones. I used more of a white one that's braided, and then I used the brown twine type that I braided or twisted two pieces together and knotted each end on the every other one. So the first one has the whitish color, and then the next one has the brown, and so on. So we have those in, and I've also gone through, added some tags and cut aparts. I'm not completely finished, and done some decorating here in the book. Now you can see here the pages, how they kind of, when it's standing up, a little bit uneven, but like I said, I'm okay with that because of the rustic nature of this beach album. So here I'm going to show you how I did the twine that is not braided, but how I made it look braided or slightly braided to put on 3 of the page inserts. So I took a good piece of it, tied a knot in one end where that loop is, and I'm going to take a clip and I'm going to clip it to the insert page. I'm just cutting the ends off where the loop is. So this is how I know where it's going to attach, and I've frayed it out a little bit and just clip it to the end. I didn't have to do this with the white one because it was already braided that I had in my stash that came on a roll of braided cord. So this one, once it's clipped and I'm using the paperweight to hold my piece down, I just take the two strands and I just twist them together like a single braid until I get it down to where I think I want it to be. And then I will tie another knot for the other end, and then I will just simply use art glitter glue and glue it down onto the insert piece just on one side. And this is what's going to be sticking out of the pages a little bit. So get it down to where I want it, tie a knot, and just double check it, make sure it's the right length. Don't want it too long, I don't want it too short, want it just right. So clip that on and then hold it down and get your knot where you want it. And then that's what I'm going to glue down. I'm going to trim that off. And then I just take the art glitter glue and glue it down onto the edge. Now I goofed on this one. I need to look. I wanted them glued to the straight edge. And I just noticed here that I did it on the curved edge. So let me check that out. You know what? I glued all of them to the curved edge of this insert, which I was going to put inside to the book. So what I'm going to do later is I'll go back and put a 1/2 inch punch on the inside corners and the whole thing will be punched. So it's okay. I did make a mistake there. I wasn't going to leave that straight. But you know what? I think maybe the rounded corners look better. So once that's attached, so I'm going to just show you where you open it up between your pockets, and that's where it slides in right there. And that part of the tag sticks out with the rope piece attached to it. So here on this page, I use the scraps of some of my burlap to just add a little bit of decorating there. I will be adding more things, of course. This is from the cut aparts. I just ravel out that burlap and put it inside there. I use scraps of the paper and some brads to make it look like nails were put in it. Some pages I will leave plain. This one here I did, before I put the paper down, cut a slit there on the little seashell booth and made a little tag that just tucks in there. Added some of that twine that's frayed out. This I've left with nothing in it, just left it for pictures. There's another piece of that scrap of the wood and one of the punch outs tags in there. More of the scraps of burlap, any size, it doesn't matter what you have left. You can use strips of it here and there. See here on this one pocket, I used just a small amount of it to finish off that piece, and I used some of this twine and I did twist it together to make it a little thicker to tie down the flap with the pocket. I have not added any inserts yet, which I will be doing off camera. But I love how this has turned out with this pattern paper. This By the Seaside by Country Craft Creations is a beautiful paper collection. It's so vintage and so beachy, weathered looking. I really, really love how it looks. And I love that boat in there with the water and the sand. So that's a pocket there. And that one's also tied in with the twine, the double strand wrapped twine. Some more of the canvas or burlap there. I love continuing the images across. That's why I use 12 by 12. These are 6 by 6 pages. You could use 6 by 6 paper packs, but I love the 12 by 12 so I can have those continuous images and the larger images on some of the flaps. So there's another pocket and a flap over here with a magnet so this drops down. Lots of places for photos in this small album. And then this one is continuation across with the flap, and that's where I pieced it together there. So I showed you that in the video, and then I love this continuation with the seashells. And again here with this pocket, I cut it so that it is a continuation of the image. And then I added a large wide belly band because I just had this scrap of paper and I thought, hey, I'll just go ahead and use that and I'll make a tag that goes inside there. So that's the pattern pages of the album. So now I'm ready to decorate the cover, but I just wanted to show you a little bit more of what I've done on the inside. I did add, like on top of the burlap, some of the cut aparts. I punched out some of the elements from the paper and added this glossy Nuvo to it. I made some little booklets with scraps of paper, added more of the cut aparts. Of course, I've got the tags and I haven't punched those corners yet on the inside yet, but I did add some ink to the page inserts on the strings or the ropes. Here I have more cut aparts. This one I put a brad on it so that it would swing. More of the tags that come in that package and the strips of paper with the elements there. I added a strip there with brads, and then of course I'd already showed you this little pocket here with the tag. But I want you to see what I have done with some of my decorating. Of course I go back and add more sometimes. This is just with the paper clip, one of the cut aparts, one on each side, and then I did use some of these tag pieces to make tuck spots, so you just add glue on the bottom so that you can tuck tags into them and add into your pockets. Use scraps of your cardstock to make photo mats. And then here, this one I made a bigger booklet. It's just tied and used a cut apart on the back. And here on this flap, I've used a cut apart or a tag, and then also on this one. And so all of them you can insert something. Now I'm going to use some of this stuff. I don't know if I'll use it on the pages, but I'm definitely going to use it on the brad. Let me grab the name of that for you. It is from Country Craft Creations. I don't think it's available right now. So look at your mixed media paints and things. This is called Finnabar Sparks. It has a little bit of, it's acrylic paint with a little bit of glitter. This is by Prima. I did get mine from Country Craft Creations, and I will use the gold color and the blue gold on the cover and on my brads and my metal pieces. So I'll be doing that to make things a little bit more rustic. So here I'm just showing you the pockets and the flaps where I have the tie closure. And again, I made a belly band on this photo mat, so you can do that with your scraps. That's a tuck spot. And again, I took one of the cut aparts or the tags and put it on some of my burlap, more tuck spots. Anywhere I used them, I always made it where I could put a picture underneath that. And then I made use this Nuvo glaze again on some circle punches that I did of some elements from the paper, and made tags and inserted them in not square but on the diagonal, and made a tag. So just have fun decorating your album. You don't have to have something on every page, but plan it so that you can insert photos. So anywhere you put a tag cut apart, just glue it on the bottom so you can tuck pictures underneath it. So like I did, even if it's on the top, and then use the cut aparts in your pockets. And then I add some of the scraps of your fabric. Another little booklet where I added some of the paper on the front. Another circle I punched out. And there's the tag I made to go behind this belly band. Just out of some of my scraps of my cardstock. So now I'm ready to get busy. I'm showing you again the spine. I'm going to get busy here on this cover decorating it. But first, we're going to make a closure for this album. And so I have taken a gold eyelet and I'm going to, on the back side here, I'm going to punch a hole in the center about 3/4 of an inch from the edge and insert the eyelet. Whoops. Okay, make sure it goes in. Insert the eyelet into the hole with the finished edge here on the outside. And then I'm going to take my Crop-A-Dile and I will crimp that and set the eyelet with this tool. Okay, so there it is in there. That's ready for the uh, twine that I'm going to use. I'm going to insert it there. I'm going to use some of this twine that I have on this roll. And then here on the front, I'm going to put this piece I had in my stash. I don't know where it's from. It could be Prima. I'm not sure. But what I did to make it the colors that I wanted, I did paint it with this acrylic Sparks paint. I used some of the gold color, the unicorn hair, which is the gold with the glitter in it. And then I also used a little bit of the blue gold color to kind of give it that beachy, worn look. So it has two holes, one on the top, one on the bottom, and I used a tiny brad for each of those. Those are just decorative, and I painted those. And it does have a screw to attach it to your cover. So I'm just going to punch a little hole centered about, again, 3/4 of an inch or so from the edge. And I'm sorry it's off camera. I had to bring it in close to me to punch. So there you go. There's the hole. Now I'm also going to use glue on the back side of this metal piece. And yes, you can use, what is that, EK6000? I just use art glitter glue. It works great with my metal pieces. So I'm putting it on the back. I'm sorry you can't see me doing that right now, but there it is. I have glue on the back of that piece and I'm going to line it up so that the handle piece where the screw goes is over the hole. I'm going to put the screw through it. Make sure it gets in. Now I get glue all over the place, but that wipes off. That's why I use art glitter glue. It dries clear and you can wipe it off before it dries, especially on this paper by Country Craft Creations. And I take a screwdriver, a Phillips screwdriver, and I'm putting that screw back in. So look at your stuff in your stash, see what you have that might work for a handle. It could be a pretty brad or something that would work for an attachment handle. So I'm just cleaning it up right now where the glue is and making sure everything's on straight. And I will move this back into your view in just a second. Let me wipe more of the glue off. Now I've flipped it around and I've taken my pokey tool and I am just pulling off bits of glue that are a little thick around the edges that I want it to be. I want it to be a little cleaner. So that's attached. I'm going to let that dry. And I have these metal corners that were also in my stash, and they were more of a brass color, kind of a brassy gold. So I also painted these with this acrylic paint with the unicorn hair gold and the blue gold color sparks. So I'm just putting glue on the inside of those, and then I'm going to place them where I want them, just one on each corner on the outer edges, and then I'm bending over the metal backs to make them stay on. The glue's going to help hold them on, and then that's bent over on the back. So I know that I'm off camera a lot fiddling with this, but sometimes I've got to bring it in closer where I can see it. But there you can see where I'm pressing it down really good, and I've got that one on. And then I will put the other one on this other side. Same thing, I'm adding the glue to the back side of the piece, and that will attach to the front cover and then bend over the back edges to really hold it onto the cover. And I just think this really added to the elegance of this album and really brought it together. And I love the altering that I did with the paint. It just really brought it all together. And it doesn't have to be perfect, and it's okay if it smudges some, and I just want to make sure I get it on this really good and give that glue a chance to hang on. I don't want these to come off. Okay, so I've got the corners on. Wipe off some glue. Just make sure it's straight. If you have to adjust it before the glue dries. So there is that. And I've got all these elements that I have been working on putting together and getting my ideas and thoughts together. So from the paper, I cut this strip that says, um, live by currents, plan by tides, and follow the sun. And then I wrinkled it up and I roughed the edges up and I folded it and crinkled it. And I'm going to glue this to the front of the album. And I also used some of that paint on the edges to kind of give it that sparkly look, uh, curled one corner up. And I'm just going to glue that right here on the top, right above, between the corner piece and the handle. So right there, just wipe off any glue and make sure that corner's rolled up and attached. I want it to have that look like it washed up from the ocean, from the sea. Okay, so we've got that on there. So I just want to kind of give you an idea of what I do decorate my corners. Now this I picked up at Hobby Lobby. This, it was a charm. It's a compass, but it was again that gold brass looking color. So I painted it with acrylic paint with both colors, with the blue gold and the gold. And I really love how that junked it up. It just made it look perfect. And so I'm going to glue that right here on the edge, just almost on the bottom of this saying that I have glued on. And so I am going to use some of the Nuvo Crystal Glaze. I use that sometimes for metal glue and art glitter glue to really make sure that it sticks down. So I'm putting the art glitter glue down on some of the high points of it so that this piece is going to stay. So just stick it down right there, and then of course got to let it dry. Okay, so next at Hobby Lobby I bought one little stem of this plastic fuzzy flowers. I don't know what they are. Fillers. It was like $1.49. Look in your stash, see what you had. This one, when I was going through the store looking for something beachy looking for ribbon actually, I saw these and thought these would be perfect. They look like seaweed to me. So I am using the art glitter glue. I'm going to glue these on. I picked up another one that's kind of grassy looking. You'll see that over there on my left. I will also use pieces of it. Um, this one here kind of got little um, stem pieces that I'm going to glue in. So I'll be adding to all of this as I go. But I wanted you to get the general idea of how to build up and decorate something to give it that look that you're wanting. So just don't be afraid to keep adding and arranging the elements and the flowers or whatever you're using. Don't just spread it out like one here and one there. You want to put them together into an arrangement so that the eye goes to all of it and not just here to the left and there to the right. You want to pull it all together. Okay, so next I have this piece of wire and I'm going to somehow incorporate it into the cover because it reminds me of something that's washed up from the ocean. It could be metal, it could be a fishnet. And then this next piece here that you see me playing with also came from Hobby Lobby. It was a ornament in their beach theme decorative section that was on sale for half price. And I bought it and painted it up with this paint. And then I added different elements to it. And right now I'm just threading my ribbon through. But the piece that I'm talking about, I added elements to it, some beads, seed beads, little tiny ones, some pearls, some real seashells that I added paint to, and also some bits of that same flower to give it a seaweed look. So I wanted something that looked like it had washed up out of the ocean. I even added a couple of old washers, a gear, just anything like that that you can add in. So here I am arranging, feeding this ribbon through that this is what I really went to get with some beachy color. This is the one that I found that I thought would work with the colors. Sheer sparkly ribbon, and I'm just feeding it through this wire to get a look I want, and I'm going to glue this piece on there. Now I typically don't use hot glue because I don't like it. I can burn myself. But for this piece, I'm going to end up having to use the hot glue gun to attach this all together and attach it to the cover. So I'm going to go ahead and keep working on this, and then I'll be back and show you what I've done. I have hot glued my starfish and shell piece down and with the ribbon down onto the cover, and I'm just holding it down to make sure it sticks good. I also added a little padlock that I painted some of that gold paint on, glued that in with it, tied it on, and here I'm showing you that I'm glued in took a little glass jar that I had, added some sand, rolled up some of that paper and made a top out of it, and glued that to the side. So we have some beach sand there and a little bottle that washed up from the sea. So I've also took some of these beads, I've added some of the blue beads, just different elements, some more of the seaweed, and I'm going to make a piece for the sides. I'm going to use a piece that I found at Hobby Lobby, and this tassel made out. I didn't make the tassel, I purchased the tassel, also made out of some of the twine. So I'm going to add that on. So now I'm going to show you how I took some of the twine from that spool of twine, and I've tied it into a loop on one end, and I'm just going through and twisting the two strands together, and every now and then I tie a knot. So this, I am making a tie closure for this metal pull you see here on the front of my cover. And so I'm going to twist all this together, and then I'm going to tie it, wrap it around the pull here on the front, and then I will tie the back of it through that eyelet on the back. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Now here I'm just measuring to see how much I want to leave. At first I thought I could just wrap it, and that's what I did at first, and then later on after I finished the video I decided to make a loop on the end and loop it over the drawer. You may have a pull that it will hold it if it wraps. My album's pretty thick, so it wouldn't hold it, so I did change that off camera. But here I am just taking it and feeding it through the back side. So the album's kind of thick and bulky, so it caused me a little problems getting it through there, but eventually I do manage to get the end of the string through and tie it in a knot here on the back side through that eyelet that I added on earlier. So I'm just going to grab it real quick here, pull it through, and it's got a knot there, so I'll pull that through, and then I'm going to double check the front here, make sure I have plenty. And again, I'm still attempting to keep it wrapped closed, but as I said, I eventually off camera took it and just tied it into a loop and made a loop that fits over that knob. So here I'm going to go ahead and tie this on. So I'm holding it in place, know where I need to tie it. So you want to make sure you tie it in a couple of knots so it doesn't come loose. Might want to put some glue in there with it to secure it also if you're afraid that it might come loose, but you can always replace this. It's not glued into the pages or the cover or anything, so that won't be a problem to replace later on if you need to on this album. So after this, then I'm going to show you real quick how I put the tassel and that charm piece through the spine of the cover. Okay, so there we go, we've got that, and I'm still just going to leave it wrapped right now. See how it starts sliding loose? So yeah, I will end up tying that into a loop and just looping it on. So I took more of the twine from that spool, took a good length of it, and I'm going to also twist it together. And then I took my ruler and tied it around the end of the ruler so that I could feed it through easily through the between the back of the pages and the curved spine. You don't want to wrap this around your pages because then it would mash your spine down. So I fed it through, and then I have added a large jump ring to this charm piece that I got at Hobby Lobby, and this pre-made tassel that's made out of twine. And I'm just going to pull this around, and I'm going to tie it in a knot there at the top of the spine. I'm not going to pull it real tight. I don't want to bend the spine. I just want to have it snug but not pulled tight. You just want it enough to hold the charm pieces. So I'm going to tie it a knot, and then I'm going to loop it through the jump ring. And so these will just hang on the back of the spine and add a more beachy look with the little seashells. I love that charm piece. It has a little starfish. It has some blue crystals and a shell, a real pretty shell, and then it has a shell piece at the top above the charm piece. So it has several little starfish, so I really love how it looks. If you can't see it in the video, but it's a really pretty piece, very beachy, something that I would like to have found at the beach. So I'm going to tie several knots to make sure it's secured, and then I will tie a knot down at the bottom of the piece, the string that's holding it, and trim that off as well. So the album is finished. I want to thank you so much for watching along with this tutorial. I will have a photo slideshow at the end of this video with pictures of each of the pages so that you can take a look at it. Be sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Give me a thumbs up, like, and as always, shop at countrycraftcreations.com. Thank you. Have a great day.